the whisper that shattered an empire. The Dominion warships hung over Earth like a new set of moons, cold, metallic, and merciless. Their shadows crawled across the continents below, blotting out whatever sunlight still fought through the ash-choked skies. To the Galactic Dominion, the battle was over. Earth was broken, its cities burning, its armies crushed. Victory, they believed, was absolute. On the command deck of the flagship Fraction, High Strategos Kelver clasped his hands behind his back and admired the devastation through a hollow projection. Towering alien spires of Dominion architecture were already being erected in the ruins of Washington and Beijing. Human resistance was scattered, uncoordinated, and, according to Dominion intelligence, psychologically ruined. Kelver exhaled with satisfaction. Civilization ends where the Dominion begins, he declared to the room of officers. The chamber filled with applause. Blue-skinned tacticians and silver-armored warriors raised their crests proudly. To them, conquering Earth had been the equivalent of crushing an annoying insect colony, a task far beneath an empire that spanned 9 galactic arms. Only one officer, a junior analyst named R.H. Whitehall, hesitated. He stepped forward. Strategos, there are irregularities. His voice was tight, uneasy. Kelver turned, expression sharpening. Irregularities? R.H. Whitehall swallowed. Patrol 7 vanished in the forests north of Oslo. No remains. No distress beacon. Drone Squadron Theta lost signal over the Rocky Mountains. And our atmospheric monitors detected unusual weather fluctuations. Kelver waved a hand dismissively. Earth is a primitive death world. Its storms are erratic. Its terrain unstable. Its people disorganized. Irregularities are expected. None of the Dominion officers contradicted him. Pride had blinded them long before they entered the Sol system. Yet the unease continued to spread. Captured humans were being transported into containment aboard the Fraction. Hardened Dominion soldiers reported that the prisoners, injured, starved, exhausted, responded strangely. They did not beg. They did not cry. Some even smiled. One Dominion guard reported that a wounded human woman whispered to him, "You should have brought more ships." The guard filed for immediate psychological review. Still, Kelver dismissed it all as fear-induced hallucination. Humans break easily. Their emotions make them unstable, he lectured. Their world is ours. Their will is irrelevant. He believed that completely, until they brought in the human general. The chamber doors opened with a hiss, and 4 Dominion elites escorted a man shackled at the wrists and ankles. He wore a tattered military coat scorched by plasma fire. Dried blood streaked his temple, yet he held his head high. His eyes, sharp, dark, unwavering, scanned the room not in despair, but in calculation. General Elias Ward, Kelver announced with theatrical superiority, the last surviving commander of Earth's unified defense. I expected someone more intimidating. Ward didn't answer. He simply stood there, breathing slow and controlled, as if the defeat of his world were a mild inconvenience. Kelver circled him. Tell me, General, how does it feel? Watching your species fall? Your cities burn? Your world kneel? Ward's lips twitched, not in fear, but in amusement. Kelver stopped. Something funny? Ward lifted his eyes, meeting Kelver's gaze with a stillness that froze half the room. When he spoke, his voice was soft, barely above a whisper, but it carried with the weight of revelation. You dominated Earth, he murmured, leaning just close enough for only Kelver to hear. And that means you're already doomed. Kelver's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? Ward shook his head slowly. No, it's a fact. The room fell silent. Dominion officers shifted uncomfortably, unsure why a whisper from a beaten human made the air suddenly feel colder. Kelver forced a scoff. Your resistance is shattered. Ward's voice remained calm. Our armies, yes. Our nations, yes. He lifted his chin. But not our people. You still don't understand what you've stepped onto. Kelver's irritation grew. Earth is conquered. Humanity is defeated. Your world belongs to the Dominion. Ward smiled. Small, controlled, terrifying. Earth doesn't belong to anyone. It devours those who try to claim it. Before Kelver could respond, alarms blared across the command deck. Officers rushed to their stations. "Strategos," a technician shouted. "We've lost contact with the entire drone network in South America." "What?" Kelver barked. "All of them. Every unit. Simultaneously." Ward's smile widened just a fraction. More reports poured in. Malfunctioning sensors, lost patrols, disappearing landing squads. Not isolated incidents anymore, but synchronized failures. Something had awakened beneath the Dominion's victory. Something the Empire had never prepared for. Kelver spun toward Ward. "What did you do?" Ward straightened, expression becoming cold steel. "You keep thinking this ends with conquering a planet." His tone deepened, echoing across the chamber. "But Earth teaches one lesson better than any world in the galaxy." He leaned forward again, whispering the words that would echo across the Dominion for decades. "Threaten humanity, and we don't break. We evolve." The alarms continued screaming. And for the first time since stepping onto Earth, the Dominion realized the truth. Their victory had not ended the war. It had only started it. What the Empire never understood about humans. The alarms did not stop. They screamed through every corridor of the Vraction, a shrill metallic warning that clawed at the discipline of even the most hardened Dominion officers. On the command deck, holographic maps flickered and scrambled, lines of red blinking aggressively where Dominion control had once seemed absolute. High Strategos, Kelver gripped the railing, his jaw clenched. "Report. Now." A flood of voices surged from every station. 3 patrol ships missing over the Pacific, vanished from sensors. Urban pacification units in Berlin have gone silent. Atmospheric stabilizers in North America have shut down, storms forming. We've lost all telemetry from ground Sector 12. Kelver slammed his fist on the console. One at a time, but the chaos refused to organize. Earth's quietness had shattered. Now it roared back with a vengeance. General Elias Ward, still standing calmly between 2 Dominion guards, watched the cascading failures with the faintest hint of satisfaction. His hands were still shackled, yet the Dominion seemed more confined than he was. Kelver turned sharply toward him. "Explain this. What are your people doing?" Ward didn't hesitate. "Surviving. It's what we do best." Kelver hissed. "Your species is defeated. You conquered our governments," Ward said, "not our nature." One of the science officers, a thin, green-skinned specialist named Yulf, stepped forward, trembling slightly. "Strategos, we have data you should see." Kelver gestured impatiently. "Show me." Yulf activated a hologram. It displayed Earth's planetary classification. Kelver frowned. "What is this opposed to?" "Earth," Yulf said shakily, "is a Class 6 death world." A hush fell instantly. Even Ward raised an eyebrow, impressed they'd finally noticed. Kelver blinked. "Impossible. Death world designations above Class 4 are reserved for planets where the environment is so lethal that long-term habitation is considered a biological anomaly," Yulf interrupted. "Yes." Kelver stepped closer to the hologram. "Explain." Yulf swallowed. "Earth's biosphere is unique. Extreme weather volatility, rapid evolutionary cycles, microbial ecosystems that adapt too quickly for our immunofilters to compensate, high predation diversity, highly oxygenated atmosphere, toxic flora, and the humans." Kelver's nostrils flared. "What about them?" Yulf tapped the hologram again. A new profile appeared, Homo sapiens. "They're not like the compliant, centralized species we've conquered before. Humans are decentralized by nature. Their social systems, their military structures, their survival instincts, everything is fragmented, redundant, self-repairing. Remove the head, and the body doesn't die. It multiplies." Kelver's eyes narrowed. "You are suggesting that their resistance continues without leadership?" Ward chuckled softly. "You think you've been fighting an army." He leaned forward. "You've been fighting a planet." The command deck froze. Then more reports came in, this time with visuals. A feed blinked to life. Dozens of Dominion troops lay unconscious in a rainforest clearing. Not dead, just down by some kind of atmospheric disruption. Their armor was corroded around the edges. Ward nodded toward the display. Humidity, oxygen, microscopic organisms. Your gear wasn't designed for Earth. Another feed appeared, this one from the Rocky Mountains. Dominion exo-walkers trudged through snow, only to vanish into a sudden whiteout storm that tore metal plating from their frames. Ward smiled faintly. Earth's weather doesn't obey occupation schedules. A third feed blinked in. Urban ruins. Dominion drones flew through a shattered city, only to drop suddenly, their systems scrambled. Ward's voice was low and steady. You assumed Earth was stable. Predictable. You assumed we would panic when our leaders fell. He met Kelver's eyes. You assumed wrong. Kelver's fists tightened. What are your people doing? These attacks, these failures, are not random. Ward's expression sharpened. Nothing humans do in war is random. Not anymore. Kelver felt a flicker of unease. Explain. Ward tilted his head. Did you think Earth prepared nothing? That we spent centuries watching the stars without making a contingency plan for when something came down from them? Kelver stared. Impossible. Humanity barely unified its own world. Ward's smile was humorless. And that's why we plan for the worst. Always. Kelver felt something cold settle in his chest. He had underestimated not just Earth, but the human psyche itself. Ward continued, his voice calm and unwavering. Your empire relies on hierarchy. Remove a ruler, and your worlds fall into chaos. Your fleets collapse without orders. Your soldiers freeze when their commanders die. He nodded toward the panicking officers on the deck. Humans don't. We operate on instinct, improvisation, stubbornness. Every civilian becomes a fighter. Every ruined building becomes a fortress. Every loss becomes fury. Kelver bared his teeth. We crushed your armies. Ward shrugged. We don't need armies. We need pressure. And you gave us that. Screens continued to fail around them. Data hissed out into static. The Dominion's tight, centralized systems were falling apart under Earth's chaotic, unpredictable resistance. Strategos, an officer cried out. We have unidentified vessels entering orbit. Kelver spun. What vessels? Small ones, unmarked, human-built. Old designs. Very old. Ward answered before the officer could. Our ghost fleets. Prototypes hidden for decades. Mothballed in asteroid belts. Seafloor vaults. Deep caves. He paused. You thought we'd wait for aliens to attack, to start preparing? Kelver stared at him, realization dawning far too late. Ward lifted his shackled hands slightly. You dominated Earth, he said quietly, echoing his earlier whisper. And now Earth is waking up. As the unidentified human vessels began firing on Dominion positions, Kelver finally understood the truth. He had not conquered a world. He had provoked a species. Humanity's counterstrike. The first human strike hit the Dominion flagship before Kelver could issue a single countercommand. A tremor tore through the Vraction, rattling every beam and console. Officers stumbled. Lights flickered. A plume of sparks burst from an overloaded data node. Impact on the starboard hull, a technician shouted. Unknown human vessel, ramming pattern. Another tremor shook the ship, sharper this time. Kelver gripped the command rail, so hard his claws dented the metal. How are they breaching our shields? Humans do not possess weapons capable of. They're not using weapons, strategos, the officer cried. They're using the ship itself. Ward watched the chaos with unsettling calm. Old Earth tactic, he said. If the front door is locked, break the door. Kelver spun toward him. You will silence yourself. But Ward's words only became more accurate by the second. The view screen lit up with feeds from smaller Dominion ships. Dozens of tiny, outdated human vessels, barely space-worthy by Dominion standards, shot through orbit with erratic, unpredictable trajectories. They're maneuvering impossibly fast, an officer gasped. Their vectors don't follow any known combat pattern. Because humans don't follow patterns, Ward murmured. We improvise. On the screen, a human vessel no larger than a cargo shuttle swung around in a spiral, dodged a plasma burst by mere meters, and hurled itself into the side of a Dominion destroyer. The resulting explosion consumed the smaller craft and tore a gaping wound through the much larger warship. Kelver's eyes widened. They're deliberately sacrificing their ships. Ward's gaze hardened. We sacrifice what we must. Humans don't cling to tools. We cling to survival. Explosions rippled across orbit as more destroyers were hit. Human ghost fleets, ancient prototypes built decades before the Dominion ever arrived, descended like swarms of metallic insects, impossible to track, impossible to predict. Counter-fire, Kelver roared. Wipe them from the skies. The Dominion fleet fired, but their targeting systems glitched under the pressure of Earth's atmospheric interference. Half the plasma volleys veered off course. Others misfired completely. Earth's storms had joined the battle. Dark clouds churned over the Atlantic, spiraling unnaturally fast. Lightning flashed in rhythmic pulses, directed, not random. Dominion weather control, stabilization pylons on the ground blinked out one by one, swallowed by surging winds and rogue waves. Ward tilted his head. That would be the AIs. Kelver stiffened. AIs? Your planet's networks should have been disabled once our cyber division. You disabled our surface networks. Ward corrected. Not the ones buried kilometers underground. Kelver's face darkened. Ward continued, voice level. You've been fighting human armies. His eyes flicked toward the raging storm on the screen. Now you're fighting Earth. Before Kelver could respond, another officer shouted, panic cracking through his professional comm. Strategos. Nanostorm detected on the hull. Kelver froze. Nano what? Ward answered before the officer could. Nanoscopic machines. Self-replicating. Earth-made. Kelver felt something cold coil in his chest. Impossible, he whispered. Ward gave him a long, heavy look. Do you really think humanity entered the space age without preparing for extinction? Sparks blasted across the bridge as Dominion systems began to short out. Panels burst open. Consoles flashed red. Crew members recoiled as shimmering, dust-like particles ate through metal faster than any corrosive substance Kelver had ever seen. Seal the bulkheads. Kelver commanded. It's not a physical breach, the officer stammered. They're spreading through our circuits, digitally and physically. Kelver snapped, then shut down the ship. We cannot. The nanostorm has hijacked essential controls. Ward inhaled slowly, almost pitying. Humanity doesn't need superior weapons. We weaponize necessity. Down on the planet, the resistance surged like a risen tide. On screen, Dominion ground forces were being overwhelmed, not by formal armies, but by civilians, engineers, guerrilla fighters, militia cells, even groups of miners wielding improvised weapons. Farmers reprogrammed agricultural tools into anti-armor traps. Hackers overloaded Dominion comm networks. Firefighters used industrial cutters to breach Dominion outposts. Every human, no matter how ordinary, fought with terrifying purpose. Kelver's voice cracked with rising disbelief. This cannot be organized. No species can coordinate resistance on this scale. Ward finally looked at him fully, expression as sharp as a blade. You're thinking like an empire. His voice deepened. We think like survivors. At that moment, a blast rocked the hallway outside the command deck. Dominion guards rushed toward the entrance with weapons drawn. Kelver barked, "What was that?" A trembling officer stared at the sensor feed. Boarding party. Human Special Forces. Kelver's pupils contracted. Already? That's impossible. Ward corrected him quietly. It's inevitable. Battle erupted in the corridors. Harsh metal screeches, weapon fire, shouts. The Dominion had been prepared for rebellions, for beasts, for primitive warfare. But not for humans fighting as though extinction were already decided. Ward stood taller. This is what you never understood, he said softly, almost regretfully. Humanity doesn't fight to win. Kelver backed away instinctively. We fight because losing isn't an option. A final explosion tore through the starboard flank. The flagship groaned under the force. Earth was no longer conquered. Earth was hunting. The whisper that ended empires. The war room aboard the USV Resolute was silent. An unnatural, breath-held quiet that seemed to stretch across the stars themselves. The holographic projection in the center of the chamber displayed the Omari Empire's last defensive line, a massive tri-ringed fortress world, bristling with weapons, shielded with layered quantum armor, and manned by the most elite fleets the Galactic Empire had ever produced. To the Omari, this was their unbreakable crown. To the humans, it was their final obstacle. General Armin Hale studied the projection with steady eyes. His presence carried a weight that the other officers could feel, a gravitational certainty. He didn't pace. He didn't frown. He simply observed, as though every possible outcome already belonged to him. Last stand, Admiral Kess muttered. Looks more like a last monument. General Hale didn't look away from the map. Every empire builds one final symbol of pride before they fall. This is theirs. The officers exchanged glances. Hale wasn't being dramatic. He never was. His calm statements had a way of becoming reality, slowly, inevitably, like orbit decay. A communications officer straightened. General, Omari command requests to open channels. They claimed to seek terms. Hale's expression didn't change. Open it. The air shimmered as a holographic figure formed. High Strategos Varen, Supreme Commander of the Omari Empire. His 4 eyes were sunken, his proud posture collapsing under invisible weight, as if centuries of dominance had suddenly turned brittle. General Hale, Varen began, voice strained. Your species has demonstrated ferocity, precision, recklessness. But this last fortress is not one you can breach. Millions will die. Hale finally lifted his gaze. It was calm, too calm, like the surface of a sea moments before a storm. We already warned you, Hale said quietly. You dominated Earth, and from that moment, your fate was sealed. The Strategos swallowed. It was an accident, a miscalculation. We didn't know your retaliation would be human. Hale finished for him. Silence again. Behind Hale, the tactical display shifted as human fleets took their positions. The Resolute thrummed with energy as its singularity lances charged. Hale spoke without turning. Commanders, initiate Operation Iron Sky. There were no acknowledgments, only immediate execution. The room lit up with motion and cascading streams of data. Varen's hologram flickered. General Hale, he said desperately, there must be another way. You have proven your strength. We acknowledge your power. But annihilating our last world is mercy, Hale said. The Strategos froze. Hale continued, voice steady but carrying a cold gravity that seemed to settle onto Varen's shoulders like chains. If we let you survive as you are, you will rebuild, rearm, and return to conquer someone else. Mercy, for the galaxy, is ending the empire that thought domination was a birthright. Varen's voice shook. You cannot decide the fate of an empire. We already did, Hale replied, when you destroyed Earth's cities. As if on cue, a screen beside him displayed the ruins of Lagos, the cratered remnants of New Manila, the glass scar where northern India used to be. Images no one in the human fleet would forget. For a moment, the Strategos looked at them, really looked, and something inside him collapsed. We surrender, Varen whispered. Unconditionally. Spare the civilians on the fortress world. I beg you. Hale's eyes softened, just barely. The war had cost humanity too much to revel in vengeance, but not enough to forgive what the Omari had done. You surrender, Hale repeated, but surrender isn't enough. He turned to his officers. Broadcast this galaxy-wide. A confirmation light blinked. The entire galactic network opened. Hale stepped forward. His voice resonated through every Omari receiver, every military relay, every civilian broadcast. I am General Armin Hale of the United Human Systems. For the crimes committed against Earth, for the billions lost, for the arrogance that led you to believe humans would kneel, we have come to end this empire's reign. He paused. Only one breath. One heartbeat. You dominated Earth, Hale whispered, his voice cold enough to silence solar winds. And from that moment, you were already doomed. Across the galaxy, Omari's soldiers froze. Civilians stopped. Leaders bowed their heads. The Empire had known fear before, but this was something else. This was knowing their fate was already written. Hale lifted his hand. Execute. Human fleets moved with flawless, terrifying synchronization. Singularity lances fired, ripping open quantum apertures that folded space like cloth. Shockwaves echoed across the system as Omari defense lines collapsed in perfect sequence. But the fortress planet was spared, its weapons dismantled, its military disabled, its people unharmed. Defeat without extinction. Victory without massacre. The Omari Empire didn't fall in fire. It fell in realization. Within hours, every Omari world broadcast surrender. Within days, the Empire dissolved. Within weeks, humanity became the galactic force no species would ever challenge again. When the battle was over, Strategos Varen appeared on a secured channel. He looked broken, but alive. "You could have destroyed us," he said quietly. Hale nodded. "We could have. Why didn't you?" Hale considered this. Because strength without restraint is just another empire waiting to fall. Varen closed his eyes. "Your species, we underestimated you." "Everyone does," Hale replied. Once, the channel closed, and for the first time since Earth burned, the human general allowed himself a long, steady breath. The war was over. Humanity had won. But more importantly, humanity had become impossible to dominate ever again.